My son-in-law rang me on a Tuesday evening and told me his parents were moving into my house. Not asked. Told. I had owned the place for exactly 11 days. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. The sound of 2 a.m. in the morning was the first thing I noticed. Not traffic. Not the neighbor's dog. Not the rubbish truck reversing down Doyleston Street at 6:30 with its high-pitched beeping. Just 2A, singing from the rotted trees at the edge of the bush, their notes tumbling over each other like water over stones. I stood on the deck in bare feet, holding a mug of coffee so fresh it still had steam curling off the surface, and I watched the light come across Marlborough Sound. The water was flat. Silver, then blue, then green as the sun climbed over the ridge behind me. A shag sat on the old jetty post, wings spread to dry. I could hear nothing man-made. Nothing at all. I am Phillip Macleod. I was 66 years old when I bought that place. 42 years I spent as a builder in Christchurch, from apprentice to foreman to running my own outfit. I built other people's dream homes my entire working life. Extensions, new builds, earthquake repairs after the quakes. My hands have held every tool you can name, and my knees have the damage to prove it. When I finally sold the business and retired, the only thing I wanted was a place of my own, somewhere quiet, away from it all. Somewhere I could sit down and hear myself think for the first time in 4 decades. I found it through an agent in Picton. A weatherboard bought in Marlborough Sound, Marlborough Sounds. 3 bedrooms, though 2 of them were barely bigger than cupboards. A kitchen with a gas cooker and a bench that sagged in the middle. A bathroom I had already planned to retile. Rainwater tank, solar panels, a generator for backup. The nearest neighbor was Bruce Tainui, a retired fisherman who lived around the next bay, about 15 minutes by boat. The nearest town was Havelock, 40 minutes on gravel roads that wound through the hills like something drawn by a child. The listing price was $310,000. I negotiated it down to $295,000. That number represented everything. My Kiwi saver, cashed out. The sale of the Doyleston Street house, minus what I gave Wendy for her deposit years ago. A small chunk of savings I had put aside since Margaret passed. 8 years since cancer took her, and the money she would have spent on the retirement we planned together sat in a term deposit, growing slowly, waiting for me to use it. So I used it. I bought silence and birdsong and a view that made my chest ache. The first week was heaven. I fixed the sagging bench. I oiled the deck. I walked the bush track behind the house and found a clearing where I could see all the way across to Arapawa Island. I dragged the old dinghy out of the boat shed, patched a crack in the hull with marine epoxy, and motored out into the Sound on a calm afternoon. Caught 2 blue cod on a simple rig. Filleted them on the jetty and cooked them in butter with lemon that same evening. Ate on the deck, alone, watching the last light fade. For the first time in years, I felt like I had arrived somewhere that was meant for me. I rang Wendy that evening. She picked up on the second ring, cheerful, talking fast the way she does. "Dad, how is it? Tell me everything." "It is perfect, love. I caught fish today. 2 blue cod, right off the jetty." "Oh, that is amazing. You deserve this so much." The warmth in her voice made me close my eyes. Wendy was 38, a primary school teacher in Lower Hutt. Smart, kind, the best thing Margaret and I ever did. She married Marcus Kirby 7 years ago. He worked in insurance, something to do with commercial policies. I never fully understood it, and he never fully explained it. Marcus was polite enough at family gatherings, always had a firm handshake, always brought a bottle of wine. But there was something behind his eyes that I could never quite read. Margaret once said he reminded her of a salesman who had memorized the script but did not believe the product. I told her she was being harsh. Turns out she was being perceptive. "Is Marcus there?" I asked. "Working late again." She said it lightly, but there was weight underneath. "He has been so stressed, Dad." The company restructured and he is under a lot of pressure. I know how that goes. Tell him I said hello. I will. When can I come visit? Anytime, love. The spare room has a bed and a view of the water. Bring your togs. We talked for a while longer. Safe topics. Her year 4 students. The garden she was planting. Whether I needed anything from town. When we hung up, I sat in the quiet and listened to a moorpork calling from somewhere deep in the bush. Its cry echoed across the water, lonely and beautiful. My phone rang again 9 days later. Tuesday, early evening. I was sanding a piece of rimu I had found in the boat shed, planning to make a small shelf for the kitchen. The caller ID said Marcus. Phillip. He never called me Phil, always Phillip, like he was addressing a client. I need to talk to you about something. Go ahead. My parents are in a difficult situation. Dad lost the rental property in Palmerston North. There were issues with the tenants, damage, legal costs. They cannot afford to rent anywhere decent on their pension. So they are going to come and stay with you for a while. A few months, until they sort themselves out. I set down the sandpaper. The rimu board suddenly fell very far away. Stay with me? You have 3 bedrooms. You are on your own in a big place. It makes sense. Marcus, I have barely moved in. This place is not set up for guests. The bedrooms are tiny, the water tank is sized for 1 person, the access road is rough. And I bought this property specifically for solitude. His tone shifted. Flatter, harder. The conference call voice. They are family, Phillip. That is what family does. They help each other. If the house is too remote for you to share, maybe you should have stayed in Christchurch. That is not what I said. I said this is not the right arrangement. I will text you their arrival details. They are coming next Saturday. No. I said it clearly, firmly, the way I would tell a subcontractor that the foundations were not level. No, Marcus. They are not coming to live here. I am happy to help your parents find a rental. I can contribute to a bond payment. But they are not moving into my home. Silence on the line. Then his voice, colder than I had ever heard it. We will see about that. He hung up. I stood in the boat shed holding my phone, staring at the rimu board. The moorpork was calling again. I wished I could answer it instead. I rang Wendy immediately. She picked up sounding tired. Dad, Marcus already told me. He's really worried about his parents. Love, he did not ask me. He told me his parents were coming. That is not how this works. She sighed. I know he can come across as direct. But Roy and Diane are in real trouble, Dad. They lost everything. Then Marcus should take them in. He has a 3-bedroom house in Lower Hutt. There is not enough room, she said, but her voice wavered. He said your place is bigger. My place has 800 square feet, Wendy. It is a balk. And I have been here 11 days. Can you at least think about it? For me? I have thought about it. The answer is no. But I meant what I said. I will help them find somewhere. Financially, within reason. She thanked me, but I could hear the conflict in her voice. She was caught between her father and her husband, and I knew which direction the pressure would come from. Marcus was relentless when he wanted something. I had watched him negotiate the price of a second-hand car once, grinding the seller down over 40 minutes until the man practically gave it away. At the time I thought it was impressive. Now it unsettled me. Saturday came. I was on the deck mid-morning, reading a paperback I had been meaning to finish for 3 years, when I heard tires on gravel. The sound was wrong for this place. Too fast, too urgent. A silver SUV appeared around the bend and pulled up beside my truck. Marcus got out first, then Wendy from the passenger side. Then, from the back seats, Roy and Diane Kirby. Roy was 69, heavy-set, with the ruddy complexion of a man who had spent decades outdoors. Diane was 67, thin, bird-like, clutching her handbag like it was a life raft. They both looked uncomfortable. Behind them, Marcus was pulling suitcases from the boot. 2 large suitcases and a cardboard box. I stood up from my chair. "Wendy, what is this?" She would not meet my eyes. "Marcus said you changed your mind." "I did not change my mind." Marcus walked toward the deck, suitcase in each hand. He smiled. The salesman smile. "Philip, let us not make a scene in front of everyone. Mom and Dad just need a few months. You will barely notice them. Put the suitcases back in the car, Marcus." He set them down at the bottom of the deck steps. "Come on. They are already here. It is a long drive back." I walked down the steps and stood in front of him. I am 66 years old, not as tall as I used to be, but 42 years of physical labor had given me shoulders that still took up space. I looked him in the eye. I said no on Tuesday. I said no to Wendy on Wednesday. I am saying no now, to your face. Your parents are not moving into my house. I am sorry for their situation, and I will help them find accommodation. But this is my home, and I decide who lives in it. Roy spoke up from behind the car. "We do not want to be a bother, Phil." Marcus said it was all arranged. "It was not arranged, Roy. I am sorry you were told otherwise." Diane's eyes were wet. She tugged Roy's sleeve. "Let us just go, Roy. I told you this was wrong." Marcus's face hardened. He took a step closer. "Fine. But do not expect Wendy to keep running up here to check on you when you are sitting out here alone, getting older, with no one around. Things happen to people who live this far from anywhere. Is that a threat?" "It is reality, Philip." Wendy was crying now, silent tears rolling down her face. She looked at me, then at Marcus, then back at me. "Dad, please. Just for a little while. Sweetheart, this is not about love. It is about respect." Marcus did not ask. He demanded. "And now he has brought your in-laws here without my consent. That is not how we raised you." She flinched. Marcus put his arm around her shoulder, but the gesture looked possessive, not comforting. They left. All 4 of them in the silver SUV, gravel spraying as Marcus reversed hard and accelerated down the driveway. I watched the dust settle. Then I went inside, sat at the kitchen table, and pressed my palms flat against the wood until my hands stopped shaking. That night, my phone started ringing. First call, 7 o'clock. My brother's wife, Janet, from Hamilton. I had not spoken to her in 6 months. "Phil, are you all right?" Marcus rang us. "He said you have been acting strangely since you moved. Isolating yourself, refusing to see family, becoming aggressive." "I am fine, Janet. I retired. I moved to the Sounds." "That is not strange, that is a plan I have had for 10 years. He said you threatened Roy and Diane. I told them they could not move into my house." "That is not a threat." Second call, 8:15. A cousin from Tauranga. Same script. Marcus had rung her too, expressing concern about my mental state. The isolation. The refusal to help family. The aggression. Third call, 9 o'clock. Wendy. "Dad, what is going on? Marcus says you were hostile to his parents. He says you physically blocked them from the door." I stood at the bottom of the steps and told them my decision. There was no blocking. There was no hostility. He says you have changed. That the isolation is affecting you. The isolation is the entire point, Wendy. I bought this place to be alone. That does not make me unstable. Her voice cracked. He is talking about getting you assessed. He says it is for your own good. Assessed. Like a mental health thing. To make sure you are coping. I closed my eyes. The moor pork was calling again from the bush, and I wished I was out there with it, away from all of this. Wendy, I love you. But I need you to listen carefully. Marcus is not concerned about my mental health. He is angry that I said no. There is a difference. A very big difference. She hung up. I sat on the deck in the dark, listening to the water lap against the jetty. 3 phone calls in one evening, all pushing the same narrative. Phil Macleod has lost it. Phil Macleod is alone in the bush, going strange. Phil Macleod needs someone to manage his affairs. It was not random. It was a campaign. I slept badly that night. Woke at 4, made coffee in the dark, watched the stars fade over the sound. By the time the sun came up, I had made a decision. I was not going to sit here and let someone dismantle my life from a distance. I had built structures for 42 years. I knew what happened when you ignored cracks in the foundation. I drove to Blenheim the next day. The road out of Kenepuru is slow, winding, beautiful in a way that demands attention. I barely noticed it. My mind was working through the problem the way it always did, structurally. Identify the weakness. Assess the load. Reinforce before failure. Sandra Palmer had her office on Market Street. I found her through a recommendation from Bruce Tainui, who had used her for a boundary dispute years ago. She was Naitahu, mid-40s, direct in the way that rural lawyers often are. No wasted words. She listened while I laid out the situation, my documents already organized in a folder. Property title, purchase agreement, family diagram, timeline of events, notes from every phone call. She read everything, then looked up. You have been thorough, Mr. Macleod. 42 years in construction. You learn to document everything or you lose disputes. She nodded. Here's what I think is happening. Your son-in-law is positioning himself for a challenge to your capacity. The phone calls to family members, the narrative about isolation and aggression, these are preliminary steps. In New Zealand, under the Protection of Personal and Property Rights Act, someone can apply to the family court to have a welfare guardian or property manager appointed if they believe a person lacks capacity to manage their own affairs. They can take away my right to manage my own property? If a court agrees you lack capacity, yes. But the burden of proof is on the applicant. And from what I can see, you are a competent, organized man who has made a rational decision to retire to a remote property. That is not evidence of incapacity. What do I do? 2 things. First, we set up a family trust under the Trusts Act 2019. The trust holds your property and assets. Even if someone challenges your capacity, the trust structure protects the assets from being redirected. Second, you get a comprehensive medical and cognitive assessment. We want a doctor's letter on file confirming you are fully competent, dated and signed, before anyone files anything. How much will the trust cost? About $3,000, all up. The medical assessment, probably $300 to $400. I wrote her a check that afternoon. Drove home through the Sounds as the sun was setting, the water turning copper and rose. For the first time in days, I felt like I was standing on solid ground. The medical assessment happened the following week. Dr. Felicity Huang at the Blenheim Health Center. I explained why I was there. She did not look surprised. You would be amazed how often I see this, she said. Adult children, or in-laws, challenging a parent's competence because they want access to assets. It is more common than people realize. She ran the full battery. Blood pressure, reflexes, blood work, cognitive screening. She asked me to draw a clock showing 2:10. I drew it accurately, muscle memory from decades of reading plans. She asked me to remember 3 words and recall them 5 minutes later. Cararoo, teaspoon, Blenheim. I remembered all 3. She asked me to count backwards from 100 by 7s. I did it without hesitation. When she was finished, she typed a letter on clinic letterhead. Mr. Phillip Macleod is cognitively intact, physically healthy for his age, and fully capable of managing his own personal, financial, and property affairs. No evidence of cognitive decline, confusion, or diminished capacity. $360. Worth every cent. 2 weeks after my first visit, I was back in Sandra's office signing the trust documents. 37 pages. I read every one. The trust held the Kenapura property, my bank accounts, my KiwiSaver withdrawal balance, everything. Total assets just over $340,000. Sandra was appointed as independent trustee alongside me. There was one clause I had asked her to include specifically. It sat on page 14. If my daughter Wendy were to inherit through the trust, the inheritance was ring-fenced as her separate property. Under New Zealand's Property Relationships Act, this meant Marcus could not claim it as relationship property in the event of a separation. It was legal. It was clean. And it was necessary. Sandra, if Marcus finds out about this clause, he will not react well. She looked at me steadily. Mr. Macleod, that clause is standard asset protection. Any competent estate planner would recommend it. His reaction is not our concern. The law is. I drove home with the documents locked in my glove box. That night, I rang Wendy. Casual, warm, asking about her students, her garden. Near the end of the conversation, I mentioned it. I have done some estate planning, love. Set up a trust. Responsible thing at my age. That is sensible, Dad. Good on you. 2 days later, she rang back. Her voice was different. Tight. Marcus wants to know about the trust. He says you should have discussed it with the family first. It is my estate, Wendy. My assets. Why would I discuss it with Marcus? He says setting up a trust without telling anyone is a sign of paranoia. He said isolated elderly people sometimes make impulsive financial decisions because they are anxious. I set down my coffee. Every word precise. Wendy, I need you to think very carefully about what you just said. Your husband is calling me paranoid for protecting my own assets. Does that sound like concern, or does that sound like someone who is upset that the assets are now harder to access? Silence. Dad, I do not know what to think anymore. Marcus is so stressed. He says you are tearing the family apart. I am sitting on my deck drinking coffee, love. The only person creating conflict is the person who tried to move his parents into my home without asking and is now telling everyone I have lost my mind. She started crying. I wanted to reach through the phone and hold her the way I did when she was small, when the world could be fixed with a plaster and a cuddle. But she was 38, and the wound was deeper than anything I could reach. The confrontation I had been expecting arrived on a Thursday afternoon. I was in the boat shed, repairing a broken oarlock, when I heard a car coming fast up the gravel. Marcus's silver SUV. He got out and slammed the door hard enough that a fantail startled out of the pohutukawa tree. I walked out of the shed and took out my phone. Held it at chest height, camera recording. Habit, now. Documentation. Marcus, you are on my property without invitation. I am recording this conversation. He was red-faced, breathing hard from a long drive or from anger, probably both. Put that away. We need to talk like adults. We can talk. I am recording for my own records. A trust, Phillip? You went behind everyone's back and locked everything up in a trust? That is my wife's inheritance you are messing with. Your wife's inheritance is protected within the trust. It is your access to it that is restricted. There is a difference. He stepped closer. I stayed where I was. I am going to contest this. I will get a lawyer. I will have the trust overturned. You are welcome to try. The trust complies fully with the Trusts Act. It was drafted by a qualified solicitor. It is not contestable on the grounds that you do not like it. His voice climbed. You are a selfish old man sitting alone in the middle of nowhere, hoarding everything for yourself while your family struggles. Your parents' financial problems are not my responsibility, Marcus. And they are not Wendy's either. Something shifted in his face. A flicker. Just for a second, but I caught it. Fear. What do you know about my parents' finances? I know enough. I know your father did not lose the rental property because of tenants. And I think you know that too. He stared at me. Then turned, walked back to his car, and left. No gravel spray this time. Controlled. Careful. The anger had shifted to something else. I stopped the recording. Reviewed it. Clear audio, clear video, both faces visible. I emailed it to Sandra Palmer with the subject line, evidence, uninvited visit, verbal confrontation. What I knew, and what Marcus did not know I knew, was this. 3 weeks earlier, I had driven to the Palmerston North District Court and searched the public records. Roy Kirby had not lost his rental property because of bad tenants. He had lost it because of a $112,000 debt to a finance company. The debt had accumulated over 2 years, traced back to online gambling. Tab, offshore betting sites, the lot. Roy had remortgaged the rental to cover his losses, then defaulted when the gambling continued. Mortgagee sale. Gone in 60 days. But it was worse than that. During one of my conversations with Wendy, she had mentioned, almost casually, that Marcus had been handling some financial matters for his parents. Helping them sort things out, she said. I filed that away. Then, using the public property records available through Land Information New Zealand, I looked up the title on Marcus and Wendy's house in Lower Hutt. There it was. A second mortgage. $85,000. Registered 8 months earlier. Single signatory. Marcus Anthony Kirby. Wendy did not know. I was certain of it. She would have told me. She was meticulous about money, a trait she got from her mother. She tracked every dollar in a spreadsheet. There was no way she knew her husband had borrowed $85,000 against their home. I rang Sandra. She listened, then spoke carefully. The second mortgage is significant. If Wendy was unaware, there may be issues under the Property Relationships Act. But Phil, this is not just a legal matter anymore. This is your daughter's marriage. I know. When are you going to tell her? I do not know if I should. You should. But the timing matters. If you tell her now, while Marcus is actively trying to undermine you, he will frame it as another attack. You need to present it factually, with documentation, at a moment when she is ready to hear it. I spent that evening on the deck. The moor pork was calling, and this time I answered it, poorly, cupping my hands around my mouth and producing a sad imitation. It did not reply. Fair enough. I was better at building things than imitating birds. The Adult Protective Services visit came 2 weeks later. I was not surprised. Sandra had warned me. It was the next logical step in Marcus's strategy. A woman named Rachel arrived in a small hatchback, professional, clipboard, official identification. Mr. Macleod, I am here regarding a concern raised about your welfare. I cannot disclose who filed it. I can guess. Please, come in. I will put the kettle on. She looked around the box. Tidy. Organized. My tools hung on pegs above the workbench, labeled. My books were sorted on shelves. The kitchen was clean, the bathroom freshly tiled, my work. You did the tiling yourself? And the deck? And the bench repair? I was a builder for 42 years. She asked about my daily routine, my health, my social connections. I told her about Bruce Tinui next door, my weekly trips to Havelock for supplies, my regular phone calls with Wendy. I showed her Dr. Huang's letter, the trust documents, my filing system. She put down her clipboard. Mr. Macleod, I have to be frank. You are one of the most organized and capable people I have visited. Whoever filed this complaint, and I truly cannot say who, may have had motivations beyond genuine concern. I appreciate your honesty, Rachel. She left after 45 minutes. I emailed Sandra the details that afternoon. Another document for the file. Another crack in Marcus's story. The moment I told Wendy was a Sunday. She had driven up alone, without Marcus, for the first time since the Saturday ambush. We were sitting on the deck, drinking flat whites I had made with the second-hand espresso machine I bought in Blenheim, watching a carrier crash land into a kauai tree with all the grace of a bowling ball. She laughed. Her real laugh, the one I remembered from when she was a kid. And I knew it was time. Wendy, I need to show you something. It is going to be hard. Her face changed. What is it? I brought out the folder. The lens printout showing the second mortgage. The finance company records from Palmerston North. Roy's gambling debts. The connections between them. She read slowly. Her hands did not shake, but her jaw tightened, and I watched the color drain from her face. $85,000, she said quietly. On our house. Yes. I did not sign this. I have never seen this document. She looked up at me, and her eyes were dry, which was worse than tears. How long have you known? 3 weeks. I waited because I wanted you to be ready. Ready? She stood up, walked to the edge of the deck, gripped the railing. I do not think anyone is ever ready to find out their husband has been lying about everything. I let her stand there. I did not fill the silence. Some things need space to land. After a long time, she turned back. That is why he wanted your property. Not for his parents. For the money. To cover what his father lost and what he borrowed to try to fix it. Yes. And when you set up the trust, it blocked him. Yes. And when I did not understand, when I took his side, I was helping him steal from you. No, love. You were being loyal to your marriage. That is not a flaw. That is who you are. She cried then. Not quietly. Deep, wrenching sobs that came from somewhere she had been holding everything for months. I stood up and held her the way I used to when she was small, my hand on the back of her head, saying nothing, just being there. Sometimes that is all a father can do. The weeks that followed were hard. Wendy confronted Marcus. He denied everything, then minimized, then blamed his parents, then blamed Wendy for not being supportive enough. The playbook of a man who had run out of moves. She moved out of the Lower Hutt house and stayed with a friend in Petwan while she consulted a lawyer of her own. The legal process moved with the particular slowness of the New Zealand family court system. But Sandra Palmer was thorough, and the evidence was comprehensive. The second mortgage was confirmed as fraudulent in that Wendy's signature was forged on supporting documents. A handwriting expert verified it. Marcus faced not only the end of his marriage but potential criminal charges for forgery and obtaining credit by deception. Roy and Diane Kirby retreated to a small flat in Fielding, funded by Roy's pension and what remained of Diane's savings. I felt no joy in their situation. Roy was a man with an addiction, and Diane was a woman who had stood by him. Their tragedy was real, even if their son had tried to make it mine. The divorce was finalized in November. Wendy resumed her maiden name. Wendy Macleod. It looked right on paper. It sounded right when she said it. With the divorce settlement, which was complicated by the second mortgage but ultimately fair, Wendy had enough for a deposit on a small house. She found a 2-bedroom cottage in Havelock, 40 minutes from my place. It needed work. The roof leaked. The piles needed releveling. The kitchen was from the 1970s. I drove over the weekend she moved in, with my tools in the truck and a boot full of timber. Dad, you do not have to do this. I have been building houses for 42 years, love. You think I am going to let my daughter live in a place with dodgy piles? We spent 3 weekends fixing that house. I did the structural work, she painted, we argued about colors the way we used to argue about everything, lovingly, loudly, and with strong opinions. She chose a shade of blue for the front door that I thought was too bright. She was right. It looked perfect. Some days were hard for her. She would be fine in the morning and furious by lunch. Angry at Marcus. Angry at herself. Once, angry at me. Why did you not tell me sooner? About the mortgage? About all of it? I sat on her new front step, rubbing paint off my hands with taps. Would you have believed me? She opened her mouth. Closed it. No. Probably not. I would have thought you were trying to break us up. That is why I waited. You had to be ready to see it yourself. She sat down beside me. The Pelorus River was visible from her garden, steel gray in the winter light. Mom would have handled this differently. She would have told me straight away and made me listen. Your mother was braver than me in every way. She leaned her head on my shoulder. I smelled paint and shampoo and something that reminded me so sharply of Margaret that my throat closed. We fell into a routine after that. Sunday dinners, alternating between her place and mine. I would drive to Havelock, or she would come out to Kenapuru. We cooked together, nothing fancy. Roast lamb, kamara mash, silver beet from her garden. She was planting again, which I took as a sign that she was putting down roots, literally and otherwise. One Sunday in late summer, we were on my deck, watching the sun go down over the sound. The Kira were back, crashing about in the Kauai the way they do, completely without dignity. A fantail danced along the railing, close enough to touch, unbothered by our presence. Wendy had been quiet for a while. Then she said, "Do you think I will ever trust someone again?" I set down my glass. I do not know. But I think trust is not something you give. It is something other people build, slowly, through what they do, not what they say. Anyone worth having in your life will understand that. She smiled. A real smile. Small, but real. When did you get so wise? I am not wise. I am just old enough to have made my mistakes and watched other people make theirs. She laughed. The Kiraru startled and launched itself out of the tree with all the aerodynamic elegance of a brick. Look at that bird, she said. Absolutely no coordination. That is my favorite one. He is here most evenings. I have named him Gerald. You have named a pigeon. He is a Kiraru. Show some respect. She laughed again, and the sound carried out across the water, mixing with the last calls of the 2A as the light faded. Later, after Wendy had driven home, I sat on the deck in the dark. The moorpork was calling. The stars were out, thick and bright the way they only get when you are far from streetlights. I thought about the last 8 months. Buying this place, full of hope. Marcus's phone call. The ambush. The smear campaign. The lawyer, the doctor, the trust. The confrontation. The truth coming out. The divorce. The rebuilding. It was not the retirement I had planned. Margaret and I were supposed to do this together, drinking wine on this deck, arguing about which bird was which, growing old side by side. Instead, I did it alone, and then fought to keep it, and then found my daughter sitting beside me in the second chair I bought after she moved nearby. Not what I planned. But good. Hard one and deeply good. I stood up, stretched my back. 66 years old and every one of them in my knees. Went inside and rang Wendy, just to say goodnight, just because I could, just because she was there and we were okay. She picked up on the first ring. Dad, I just saw the most incredible sunset from my garden. The whole sky went pink. Same what I saw from here. Must be the same sky. She laughed. Obviously it is the same sky, Dad. I know. Just nice to share it. Good night, Dad. Good night, love. Lock your door. Always do. I hung up and stood at the window for a moment, looking out at the dark water. The jetty was a shadow. The shag was probably asleep on its post, wings tucked in. Somewhere out there, Bruce Tainui was likely doing the same thing I was, standing in his kitchen, looking at the water, thinking about nothing in particular. And that was enough. I turned off the light and went to bed. Now, before I finish, I want to share a few things this experience taught me, for anyone listening who might be in a similar situation, or who knows someone who is. First, your property is yours. It does not matter who shares your blood or your surname. No one has the right to move into your home, claim your assets, or override your decisions about how you live your life. Family love is real and important, but it does not come with a property title. Second, document everything. I say this as a man who spent 4 decades on building sites. If it is not written down, it did not happen. Keep notes. Save messages. Record conversations when it is legal to do so. If someone is trying to undermine you, your records are your foundation. Third, if you are over 60 and you own property, talk to a lawyer about a family trust. In New Zealand, the Trusts Act 2019 provides a clear framework. It is not about distrust. It is about protection. A trust does not mean you think your family is dishonest. It means you are responsible enough to plan for every possibility. Fourth, get a medical assessment on your own terms. Do not wait for someone else to question your competence. A letter from your GP confirming your cognitive health is one of the most powerful documents you can have. It takes an hour. It costs a few $100s. It can save you everything. And fifth, saying no to family is not cruelty. It is not selfishness. It is not a sign of mental decline. It is a boundary. And boundaries are what keep structures standing. I built enough houses to know that without good boundaries, everything collapses. If you are going through something like this, know that you are not alone. Reach out to a lawyer, to your doctor, to someone you trust. You have spent your whole life building something. Do not let anyone take it from you. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. I would love to hear your experiences. And to listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.